Shalom, everybody. Hello, everybody. We starting today chapter 6 of Pirkei Avot. I want to say something about the chapter and the composition, then a little bit about the two first Mishnayot that we're studying today. This chapter is an addendum. It was not part of the original. The original tractate, it was 5 chapters. The one of Rabbi Edgar Nof from the Mishnah 5. So why they added this chapter number 6? By the way, the 5 chapters of the Mishnah Pirkei Avot is like the 5 books of Moses. One was the written Torah. Now this will be the oral Torah, and it's also like the 5 books of Psalms. Book of Psalms is also divided in 5 books. So we understand 5. I look my hand, see 5. So why they add another chapter? And we can see in the chapter today is much different in style and content than the other chapters. So why they added? Somehow in the Middle Ages decided that Pirkei Avot, since it's very important to study Pirkei Avot, maybe there was a pulmuse against the Karaim. The Karaim accepted the written Torah, but not the oral Torah. Anita, happy birthday, Mazel Tov, Yom Huledet Sameach. You cannot hear us. Okay, but now you're here. Wishing you happy birthday until 120. Okay, so I'll continue. So there's the Jews, and there is the Karaites, the Jews. That the Karaite Jews do not accept the rabbinical Torah, the oral Torah. They only accept the written Torah. So it was very important to do things like read the Haftarah, like bringing things of the sages to the services. One of the costumes that they decided is to read our tractate, that is a tractate of principles. It's a very educational tractate, different from all of the rest of the tractates in the Mishnah, in the Gemara, to read it between Passover and Shavuot. Now, Passover and Shavuot, we count, it's called Sfirat HaOmer, we count 49 days, right? 7 times 7. I explain you once I'm going to use the book. Everything material, it has 3 dimensions and 6 directions, right? Like a cube. So 3-dimensional, 6 directionals is everything that is material, physical. And that's why the Torah says, 6 is the work, the physical work. 7 is the spiritual work. 7 is the direction of the spiritual things. That's why many things we do with the number 7. As I say, for example, today I did a bar mitzvah in Herzliya, so the boy put the tefillin. There were 7 things around the arm. There is many weddings. There is the custom that the bride gives 7 times around the groom. They don't do it that much these days because I think they gives a headache to the groom. But it's a lot of things that they do with the number 7. 7 is spiritual. We say in Sukkot we have the 4 species, but we transform it into 7 by having 2 aravot and 3 other things. So instead of 4, we have 7. So the Torah is the spiritual of the spiritual. So we count 7 times 7 from the material freedom, Passover, going out physically from Egypt, to receiving the Torah. That will be the spiritual freedom, right? When I have the Torah, so I can choose how to behave. So there is 7 weeks. If I have 7 weeks, there is always in between Passover and Shavuot 6 Shabbatot. Now, if in every Shabbat I'm going to read a chapter from Pirkei Avot, from the tractate of our the ethics of our parents, and I have only 5 in the book, the last Shabbat before Shavuot, I have nothing to read. So they decided to bring things from the sages. Some of them were mentioned in previous chapters, and some they not. And they did another chapter, and then they will have every Shabbat 1 chapter to read Pirkei Avot. That's how this chapter was born. We know that in the ancient manuscripts of the Mishnah, the very, very ancient, this chapter doesn't show. It's much later addendum. So we don't see it. For example, Maimonides. Maimonides is already the 12th century. He has commentaries on the first 5 chapters, but doesn't have commentaries on the 6th chapter. So he also see this 6th chapter like an addendum, but not so much the tradition from Moses to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. That's why they call this chapter Kinyan Torah, the acquisition of the Torah, how you purchase the Torah, how you acquire the Torah. But some they call it the chapter of Rabbi Meir. Why they call it the chapter of Rabbi Meir? Because right at the beginning is a saying of Rabbi Meir. And Rabbi Meir is very important in the passing of the Torah. We saw it in chapter 4, he and the students, and he kind of gets the Torah from Rabbi Akiva, 130, and pass it to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, 200. So he's Rabbi Meir in the year 170. That's a very important. So they give him his, they attribute this chapter also to him, but not necessarily. Maybe if it was Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi at the beginning and Rabbi Meir in the second one, they will call it the chapter of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Not because Rabbi Meir has influence on the rest of what's written here on this tractate. So the topic is very important because we say that is 6 weeks in between Pesach and Shavuot, but Shavuot is the holiday that we receive the Torah, right? This is when we celebrate the receiving of the Torah. And that's why the best topic for the Shabbat before Shavuot is to talk about the Torah and how you acquire the Torah. So I think it gives more or less a fair description of chapter 6, and I'm going to the first 2 Mishnayot, which Professor Lachter put here for us. First, he starts with a nice blessing, saying the first sentence that says that this what is written in this chapter was said in the same way like they say in the other chapters. Like they recognize themselves that it's an addendum, but God chose them as well as they choose the other rabbis. Like, because if it's an addendum, it doesn't mean that it's less important. It's just, it's later, but it doesn't mean that the things we say later is less important than the things that we say at the beginning. Rabbi Meir starts with a very nice Mishnah saying that if you study the Torah for the sake of studying the Torah, you gain a lot of things. And he's describing, I'm sure Professor Lachter is going to show you all of the description of what a wonderful things you get from the Torah. And it's kind of a contradiction, because if you study the Torah just for the sake of study of the Torah, Lishma, you don't need all of these prizes that you get. You don't need the incentive. You should say, you study the Torah, good things will happen to you, but I don't have to say which good things happen to you. Still, wonderful things happen to us if we study the Torah. I want to say personally that one of the most gratifying things that I have in my lifetime is when I study Torah. And even when I study Torah, just to study Torah, not to study Torah to prepare a class, not to study Torah to give a class, just to study, and to study in general. I think when we see a movie in the TV, it's nice. But when we see some program, I don't know, I like archaeology, programs in archaeology and history, Judaism and topics. Beit Avichai have wonderful programs in Hebrew every morning. So it feels like you did something important with your time. And also give you an insight, many things on things that they are valuable. It's not something like, oh, you're a Jew, so you have to study the Torah. It's also gives you a lot of, so I'm kind of identified with Rabbi Meir. That it's very good to study. I think it's very good to study everything. If you study art, they will give you also very good insight. If you study medicine, will give you very good insight. If you study, I don't know, anything, economics, anything you study, it will bring you a lot of benefits. And I think even more, if you just study because you like to study. I think when a person that wants to learn all the time, improve himself, and see insights, it comes a time on, there is a time on life that maybe we want to have money in the bank to be sure, you know, and you have children and you have things to spend and you want to make sure. But it's a time in life that money is not something gratifying. You want to do like good deeds, you want to study, you want to spend time with family, with the community, you want to do things that they give you some meaning in life. And people with the time, I see with the age, more and more they want meaningful things. And the meaningful things that are many times the spiritual things that we say. So I'm going to conclude my part by saying that I identify 100% with Rabbi Meir here. And maybe it was an addendum, it's a later addendum, maybe it was not part of the original tractate. Still very good, it's very important. And I'm very glad that God bless also the rabbis of chapter 6, and they give a lot of merits for the wonderful things they're going to teach us in chapter 6 until the end of our semester. So I'm going to pass the microphone, Professor Lachter.
Okay, very nice. Especially nice to hear your personal take on this.
And welcome back to Israel.
Thank you. Very good to always come back to Israel. Rabbi Meir said the same thing. His love for the land of Israel was extraordinary. He saw sanctity even in the stones of Jerusalem and considered living in the land a key to the world to come. He said, anyone who steadily lives in Eretz Israel, the land itself, will cause God to grant him atonement. Unhappily, he was forced to leave the Holy Land. Eventually, he settled in Asia Minor, where he supported himself as a scribe. He longed eternally for Zion, so he commanded that his remains would be returned to Eretz Israel, and until then, the casket should be placed on the Mediterranean seashore opposite the land so that he would remain connected to his homeland by way of the waves that lick the shore. So he was quite something, this Rabbi Meir. We studied him a little bit before. According to the Talmud, he's a descendant of the Roman Caesar Nero, Nero, right? And his wife Bruria is mentioned many times, the daughter of Rabbi Hanina in the Talmud. So last week, this Beit Avichai had lectures on the wisdom of Bruria, bat shel Rav Hanina. She was famous in her own right. She was very learned, and a lot of people have learned from her ever since. And he had a successful formula for public speaking, and that was 1/3 halacha, 1/3 homiletics, and 1/3 illustrative stories and parables, and that kept his audiences spellbound, according to the Talmud Yerushalmi. And so, following his pattern, we do 1/3 of text, and we do 1/3 of. And that's that Edgar talking a little bit about the background of it, and about 1/3 of our time discussing amongst ourselves what the text here says. So he goes into, in this first Mishnah, Rabbi Meir would say, whoever studies Torah for Torah's sake alone, that in itself is worth a big explanation in terms of what it means, lishma, for its own sake, merits many things. Not only that, but the entire world is worthwhile for that person alone. That person is called friend, beloved, lover of God, lover of humanity, rejoicer of God, rejoicer of humanity. The Torah enclothes that person who studies Torah for Torah's sake with humility and awe, makes them fit to be righteous, pious, correct, and faithful, distances them from sin, and brings them close to merit. And from such people, others enjoy counsel and wisdom, understanding and power. As stated in Proverbs, and last year we did the book of Proverbs, mine are counsel and wisdom, I am understanding, mine is power. The Torah grants them sovereignty, dominion, jurisprudence. The Torah's secrets are revealed to them, and they become like an ever-increasing wellspring and an unceasing river. That person becomes modest, patient, and forgiving of insults. Insults will come up in the next Mishnah. The Torah uplifts them and makes them greater than all creations. So Rabbi Meir and others have said, do things for the sake of the deed. You study Torah not just to study, but by studying, you learn what to do, and emphasized the importance that the study is in order to do what the Torah says, and that was the Rambam's main message on this, is that Torah study is for doing the right things. And I've been studying Torah not my whole life, not as a kid. It was not an option as a little kid, but eventually kind of came around to it. And as Edgar has said, it feels like something very valuable and meaningful to do with my time. And so I'm happy to continue the study of Torah, and I'm not sure that it has given me all of the benefits that it says here in terms of humility and correctness and piousness, but some of that, and made those directions in which to go, things how we should try to become. And I then had I should put this up. Let me put the share up. There we go. This should go away.
It's there.
It's there now. Okay. And it's written really nicely in terms of all of the benefits of Torah study in terms of where it brings us. And then comes Rabbi Joshua, the son of Levi, who says, every day an echo resounds from Mount Horeb, saying, woe is to the creatures who insult the Torah. Me'alvoni, la'aliv is to insult, right? But I'm going to say to reject, okay, the Torah, because one who does not occupy themselves in Torah is considered as an outcast. And in Proverbs, and we learned that a year ago, it's like a golden nose ring in the snout of a swine, or a beautiful person who is bereft of reason. And in Exodus, it says, in the tablets are the work of God, as the writing is God's writing engraved on the tablets, and to read, not that they're engraved, charut, but to read it as cherut, because this is a kind of freedom. So sometimes people who are not reading Torah feel they are free. But what Exodus and this says, where it says cherut, that there is no free individual. The real freedom is someone who occupies themselves with the study of Torah. And whoever occupies themselves with that study is elevated. And from the gift to Nachliel, I think a Nachliel is a sparrow. And from Nachliel to the heights up to the sky. So what we're having here is what are the benefits that Liz and Anita and Gershom and Beverly have felt from Torah study, and to try and give some examples to that. And my own answers, and I gave only part, and I talked to Flores, who can't be here today, but I have her input on it, that some of the benefits that Torah study have are that it provides a sense of community. It binds us to a community of Torah studiers. It shares a wisdom. You don't have to get every bit of wisdom for yourself, perhaps. It gives, as I think Edgar used the word, meaningfulness. It gives us a sense that the time we've spent on it is meaningful. And it gives us a connection to our roots. And I'm hoping that you will give me some examples of that from your own experience of Torah study. And then we may or may not get about how we feel about people who insult, not just reject perhaps, but even insult Torah study as being a bad thing. So Liz, I know you prepared a little bit. And Gershon, you'll be next.
Okay, Jesse.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of Torah study, the Torah, as I think of it, is, the 5 books of Moses, the 5 books, and all the rest of that is still, to me, part of the Torah, the writings and the prophets and and everything else. And it's very hard to just sit and read it. That, without having, for me, somebody to explain so much of it to me. And then there's all the extensions of, the Torah, when you have the Talmud and then the Gemara and all this other stuff. And so it's become important to me to learn as much as I can. But I'm not going to drown myself in it. I do Daf Yomi, and there's every day a new idea put forth there to think about, which is probably as close as I'm getting to any kind of daily Torah study. And while I was reading all of this, I'm also in my mind the ongoing problem that we're having in the country with the IDF and the people who study Torah and who are refusing to be in the IDF. And that they're talking about arresting them before they leave the country, and it makes me sad to see that, studying Torah in that sense has become such a point of contention, in the life here.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say Torah study does for you or has done for you? What has the benefit been?
Well, I think that it connects me to my roots, things that I did not know. I don't want to say justifies my wanting to continue to live in Israel and to be here, be part of it. One of my rabbis had said to me, by living in Israel, you're closer to the flame.
Mm-hmm.
And that in learning about these things, I mean, I really feel like you benefit from learning. As the rabbi said, no matter what you're studying, but when you're studying something that is part of our heritage, it's important to know, I'm a Jew. Why am I a Jew? Why do I continue to be a Jew? I didn't ask to be born a Jew, but I was born into this. And my feeling is the more I know about it, the better.
That's terrific. Those are really good benefits. The more you know, the better you're feeling about being Jewish and delving into it. And I want to support your position that just Torah study without deeds gets kind of hollow. And you shouldn't be just studying Torah. And Rabbi Meir and the Rambam on his discussion of it also is that we're studying this in order to become the kind of people that this first chapter has said. That is, people who do the right things, do counsel, do behave modestly, patiently, and try at least to be forgiving of insults, do have humility, and do have understanding and feel the power of that. Great. That's beautiful. Anita, you're next. Lorena, next after. So you get ready.
Was I supposed to be going?
Gershon? Sorry, did I change? Go ahead, Gershon.
Yeah, I can wait if you want.
Green McCursham?
Go ahead, Gershon, and then Anita will go.
Okay, so first of
And
all,
then Lorena, and then we got Bev.
first of all, thank you, Liz, for those wonderful commentaries that I think said so much of what the rest of us may be feeling without having expressed it as well. But that was good. As far as benefits, the sharing with other friends, some of whom I've actually never met in person, but it's that sharing feeling is wonderful in that we all advance, both students and teachers. It has all revamped some of my idea about rabbis and Torah study. I mean, I grew up in a household with a rabbi, and he was certainly an eternal student. Reading was his greatest joy, and but I didn't really get the opportunity to discuss it with him as an adult. He passed when I was 25 and had not yet become inspired to either study Torah or make Aliyah or any of the things that we might have had great conversations about. So in some ways, it connects me in my own family to know that I'm studying the same things from a very different background. And I can't, I'm sorry, I can't pick out particular examples, but so many things have been like that really, means something for me, for how I live my life or why I live my life. It certainly connects me to a lot of what happens in Israel that might be hard to understand otherwise. I mean, one strange thing that comes to mind that comes up in certain Facebook discussions is just the whole concept of Lashon Hara, which is actually what Israeli law is based on, and people have trouble understanding when they come from the US that slander and libel are not the same thing here as they were back in the US, and that they have to modify their behavior some. So understanding some of those things can be very useful. And as far as those who insult or reject Torah study, there are stupid people in all walks of life. And sorry, but there's just no reason to, certainly not to insult it, and not to reject it for everybody, although one can certainly reject exclusive Torah study that keeps one from being in touch with the world. I think, I relate back to what we've learned about the original rabbis had jobs to earn a living, and then they had love of Judaism and Torah to enrich their lives. I think Rabbi Edgar is a great example in that while many may think of him as his profession is as a rabbi, but for those of us who have seen him go out into the community and do good deeds there, we know that there's a lot more to what he does. And whether he gets paid for those things specifically or not is irrelevant. He's just not locked in a room with a Torah scroll or a Talmud all day long. And that's great. So again, foolish people in many aspects of life. I'll leave it at that.
Well, that's great. I'm understanding that it's really good to study the same thing that your father did, even if sadly it's not together with him at an age at which you might internalize and understand it, and that a lot of the learnings resonate with how life is here. Specifically, Flora said one of the reasons she was happy that she could not be available today, it's not why she's not here, but why she's happy that she isn't, is she was afraid she might get into Lashon Hara when she would start talking about people who insult or reject Torah study, specifically in terms of people who seem to feel no responsibility, that they do anything they want because there are no laws. And that resonates with what Liz was saying, that the Torah is all of the laws and rules and edicts and takanon, the separate levels of yeses and nos, or do's and don'ts. Terrific. Anita, sorry I confused you before. You have to unmute yourself, and Lorena will be ready to unmute herself next. Anita, I'm not sure if you can.
Anita mentioned she was having computer issues.
I see.
She appears frozen. Who's next?
Yeah, Lorena?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, in a way, I'm very happy that I heard Liz, because I was really wondering about what I was going to say. Like, up until 2 days ago, I was preparing my answer. What does it give me to study, etc., etc. And then I saw what Liz mentioned a little bit. It's the first time that I was really so hurt and so confused when I saw, for all of you, you know what I'm talking about, the film of the yeshiva students dancing and saying, "I rather die than enlist." And I thought, if you study the Torah all the time, how, what kind of behavior is this? Where is the wisdom, or where is the love? Or and it really confused me. I was thinking how to see this, because of course I see people burning flags. It's very much now in Norway and everywhere. Or how can you not respect studying Torah? But shouldn't that translate? Well, that's what we talk about into, I don't know. I was so sad when I saw these films and I couldn't get it together. And I thought it really confused me. I knew a general who was part of the IDF, and he was very religious, and he kind of brought it in there, and he said we can use it as inspiration, and that was very, very beautiful. But yeah, these last 2 days were difficult for me.
Okay, well, I want to explain a position which a lot of people outside of Israel might find harder to appreciate, and that is the Haredi position. And I'm certainly not going to justify it, not as a lieutenant colonel in the army and not as someone who spent 25 years in the army. But their feeling is that they are serving, they say, B'tzvah Hashem, in the army of God, on the one hand, and that their prayer is protecting our soldiers on another level, and on their less noble motivation, but on the fear level, they have very much a fear that if they would leave, if they would serve in the army, that they would lose people from the Haredi community, that the people who would be exposed to the outside world or be exposed to the Israel Defense Forces would then leave the Haredi community and not go back. They would be exposed, for instance, to women who they have not seen. They would be exposed to a different kind of dress. They would be taking orders from someone who is not a Haredi. And that's some of how they come up with justification for not serving. And then the last motivation is one that we should hope is not the motivation, but surely plays a role from the perspective of those of us who do serve or have served, and that is that they're just afraid and that they're taking advantage of coalition politics to not behave responsibly towards the greater community where they live.
But I would, yeah. For me, then it becomes so interesting. Like, what does the Torah say about, serving or whatever?
Oh, well, there's quite a lot about it. And it certainly says that you must serve. And obviously the holiest did serve. And there are many wars starting in the books of Torah, right? The first one being against Amalek, way back while crossing the Sinai Desert, and then with the Midyanim. So there's a lot which says that you must, with certain exemptions which do not include Torah study. They do include people who, for instance, have just married. They get a year off before they have to serve. They're not off forever, but they get a year off. And there are other exceptions. I'm not justifying that they don't. And that member of the Knesset who danced with them, even though he's a minister in the government, was censured quite a lot and ended up apologizing and saying he does not agree to that expression, that it's better to die than to serve. But the Torah and the Talmud are full of the requirement to serve your community. And so those who are not are certainly going against it. Anita, I can see you now. So it looks like you're not frozen. Are you able to unmute yourself? You cannot hear? You can hear, but you can't speak. You cannot unmute in the lower left-hand corner. There should be a spot that says mute, unmute. You see it, but it doesn't work. Okay, well, you're welcome to either put something in the chat box or write to me afterwards about the questions that I listed here, because you've always got interesting, good perspectives on handling this. So I see my mom and Ted on the screen, and maybe we could hear from you. But again, you must unmute yourself in the lower left-hand corner. Maybe, Ted, you want to be first this time.
Go.
The question being,
Well-
what are some of the benefits that you feel you have gained from Torah study?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank for the previous expressions. They
Anita, good.
certainly reflect my thinking, but I'm just going to take a little different aspect. And not that I reject any of the other comments. And I'll start with an analogy. To find yourself in the middle of a city, for example, that you've never been before, or in the middle of a forest, and you want to find your way to a proper destination. In either case, it would be very helpful to have a map. Otherwise, it's very frustrating and confusing and easy to get into trouble. My point is that the Torah gives, I think, a very powerful moral or directions to a moral life. And if you don't have guidance on how to live a very moral life and are confused about it, that's one problem, or you're easily going to get lost further and make many mistakes. So I always like to point to the Ten Commandments, although, of course, the Bible has many other suggestions. But to me, the Torah tells me how not to be confused. It provides direction. And if I follow the directions of the Torah, I am more likely to lead a healthy, physically and mentally, a safer, less confusing life. In other words, the Torah is a guide. It's a map to healthy moral living.
Beautiful. And you followed Rabbi Meir's example of one part analogy, one part homiletics, and one part the text, as we discussed at the beginning. And this is Rabbi Meir's formula for keeping people spellbound as he spoke. It is a great guide. And Rabbi Edgar is great about saying, if the Torah is like red lights and green lights, so what would happen in New York City where you're living now if there were no lights? How long would traffic be able to exist? Very short time. So your guide metaphor is excellent. Mom, what has Torah study done for you?
Well, for someone who grows up and they're Jewish and they have, that's it. That's all they know is that they were born Jewish. What does that all mean to them? What is being Jewish all about? It begins to explain how to live. And it seems to me that many people, they say, I'm Jewish, and it ends there. But I think that the Torah guides people to do it. Studying Heschel, who studied the prophets and the Torah, and he said it's not enough to just read it. You have to act on it. And many people just read it as a novel, but it's not that at all. One of the benefits is you appreciate what the 1,000 years of thought and have where the 1,000 years the sages have brought us, and are having the Torah as a guide is certainly a way. And we know that other cultures that have not used it are full of hate and destruction. The Torah guides you to a beautiful, healthy life with love and harmony and socialization and so on. So I have to say that I was probably one of those people who grew up knowing that I was Jewish, but had no idea what that meant. Are you Jewish? Yes. What? So what? And the Torah brought me together with people from other places, and who also studied the Torah. So it was a connection that and people need to be connected. And finally, at this point, I see the Jews as one family, and that we need to really support each other, and I know that we feel for each other because we are all walking with broken hearts, and we share our joys, but we suffer each other's sufferings. So there's a lot to be gained from the Torah, and I'm certainly glad that I woke up and I found a rabbi that could lead me, help me, provide a community for me, and I'm very grateful for that.
Great. Well, those are very much resonating with the listing that I gave you in terms of community and sharing and meaningfulness and connection to roots and connection to us. Beautiful. Anita, I think you got, yes, great. Amazingly, we cannot hear you, but I see you and you don't seem to be muted. Do you have a microphone? Yes.
It shows like you can speak.
I saw your lips moving. It looked like you were speaking. Can you get to where it says sound? There's a little picture of like a loudspeaker, and see if you could increase the sound. Or do you have headphones connected that are just laying on the table? 1 second. Yes, we can wait a second. That's fine.
Jesse?
Yes,
I just wanted to add a comment,
go
I'm
ahead.
reminded of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and their song that says, those you who are on the road must have a code to live by and teach it to your children. And I think that's something that Judaism has really taken to heart more than, I don't want to say more than other religions, but took it seriously, that this is something we have used as our code and taught to our children.
That's great. Are any of them Jewish? Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young?
Not that I know of.
I don't
Anita,
know.
I can call you in the telephone and put you in the speaker if you want. In the telephone. And then we will see you and listen. I'm calling you now. 1 minute. Just a minute.
Anita, can you pick up your telephone?
Okay. I'm calling you.
Multiple technologies here.
Yeah, we improvise.
I can hear that the phone is ringing there, so the sound is coming through.
Okay, so we will be able to hear Anita now. Okay. Well, you have to unmute yourself from the computer now.
There's a lot of feedback.
No, the computer just put it in. Elise, just can you mute Anita?
Yeah.
No. Liz is going to mute you. There.
I did. Now
Okay.
she's muted.
Okay, now. Okay, we'll listen.
I converted to Judaism. This is awful. This is not going to work.
No, I think it's because my telephone is making the echo with the Zoom now.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Now it works. Now it works. Go ahead, Anita.
Have to unmute her.
It's so frustrating.
Welcome to the 21st century. Well, I'm sorry because we enjoy your wisdom week by week, but you may add it, Anita, in writing, and I will send it out with the invitation for next week. But I know that you've been studying, you and Fred, and this is not your first time through Avot, so you might share what you learned from this chapter as well last time. But yes, the technology is challenging, and I'm sorry about that. I'm going to wish you all a really great weekend, and hope you're all doing preparations, at least internally, for Pesach, which of course has the maybe the most dramatic story of the Torah. I would emphasize that when we say Torah, Torah is the law. So you can say Chamisha Chumshei Torah, the 5 books of Torah, but you can say that Talmud is Torah because it's Torah Sheba'al Peh. So Pirkei Avot is part of Torah of the Jews. It's part of the overall Torah, which includes oral law and written law. So all of that, the writings, the chronicles, the prophets, the Talmud, are all considered Torah. They all fit under that word. And then the word is also used for law. But let's hope that all of us, that Torah study will continue to be providing community and connectedness and a chance to feel somehow closer to God or godliness, and a connection to our roots and tradition, and something worthy of passing on. And as Mom said, it's very meaningful to connect to roots and to sort of wake up to this having great value and meaningfulness for us, even if some people have been using it, as they say, as a spade to dig with. Rabbi Meir, as I told you, made a living as a scribe, and those people who are not making a living and who are using Torah study instead of working for their own living are clearly, according to Torah, doing some abuse of that. Go ahead, Gershon.
Gershon wanted to say something. I just wanted
Yes.
first to say refuah shlema to Nathan, our friend who is
Yes.
ill. He cannot participate because he's ill, and we wish him refuah shlema. And Gershon, now it's your turn.
Just letting a couple of folks who weren't here when we were talking at the beginning know that we switched to daylight savings time tonight. So for those in the US, class will be an hour earlier starting next week.
Thank you.
I'll just end with a prayer for the wonderfulness of studying Torah and gratefulness for having a Torah to study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. It said that there is no mitzvah greater than the mitzvah of Torah study, and that in that sense, Torah study is the equivalent of all of the mitzvot. So
Thank
Shabbat
you very
Shalom
much.
to all of you.
Amen.
Anita, I'm sorry for the frustration, but I'm sure by next week that'll work itself out.
תודה רבה, thank you. הכל יסתדר.
Shabbat
Bye-bye.
Shalom.
שלום לכולם. להתראות.
Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.